Hey everyone, Kelly Dean Allen here with you again. Remember a couple of years ago when I did those 13 year-by-year Riff Battle videos that nobody seemed to watch? I'll link them down below in the description box if you'd like to check them out. Well, anyway, they're back. Now, those of you who did watch them seemed to like them, and I really enjoyed making them. So we're going to pick them back up right where I left off 2 years ago in 1984. But first, I have to go back a few years through my videos and have a look at the 1983 video that I made and see who actually won that Riff Battle, if any of you still care. So let's get on that right now before we dig into 1984. And the winner of Riff Battle 1983 is, drum roll please, Right then, on to 1984, and don't forget to vote for your favorite down in the comments when the video is over, yeah? So then, got a real mixed bag for you this time with a little bit of everything thrown in the mix. A couple of straight up metal riffs, some hair metal, some hard rock, some blues, some alt rock, some jangle pop, so on and so forth. Now, normally these videos consist of 10 riffs. However, I'm going to add an honorable mention this time, as it's likely my favorite riff by The Edge and U2, and probably my favorite song overall by the band. Thing is, we're going honorable mention with this one mostly because the riff is pretty dead simple to play and almost entirely effects driven. Not that, that should take anything away from its effectiveness as a great guitar riff. This is The Edge, U2, and Bad from 1984's The Unforgettable Fire. Good then, let's check out my top 10, presented in no particular order. Going to start off with a bit of metal for you, beginning with Iron Maiden, the winner of our last Riff Battle. Now, it's 1984, and that means we've got the Maiden masterpiece Power Slave album to deal with, and I suppose the obvious choice here would be the riff to 2 Minutes to Midnight. However, I went with something different, because in my opinion, it's the better guitar riff of the two, and one of Adrian Smith's overall best. Sadly, the riff gets relegated to deep cut as the band couldn't manage to compose a more high-profile track around this fantastic riff. This is the opening riff to Back in the Village as contender number 1. Right then, on to contender number 2 with an alt-rock riff that's got just a bit more twang and jangle to it. And if we're talking twang and jangle and 1984, we must be talking about Peter Buck and early R.E.M. Not exclusively, however, as we've got another jangly alt-rock riff from 1984 coming up later in this video. So stay tuned if jangle rock is your thing. But for now, we have R.E.M. and one of my all-time favorite early R.E.M. tracks, a cut from their brilliant second album, Reckoning. This is Peter Buck, R.E.M., and the awesome opening riff to Pretty Persuasion as contender number 2. Let's check it out. Good then, our first of 2 alt-rock tracks out of the way on this list. It's time for a bit of classic mid-80s hair metal riffage. Now this guitarist would, just 1 year later, compose what I and many others considered to be one of the greatest guitar riffs of the entire 80s. Hell, of all time, really. That guitar player is Warren DeMartini of Ratt, and the riff that I speak of is the riff to their 1985 track, Lay It Down. However, before that riff gets added to the 1985 video, we have his first big-time guitar riff from the band's debut album. This is Round and Round, Warren DeMartini and Ratt, contender number 3. So then, contender number 4, and we're going to hit you up with a bit of blues this time. Some very fast, taking it to another level blues riffing from the late great Stevie Ray Vaughan. In 1984, Stevie released his second album, Couldn't Stand the Weather, and kicked that album off with this absolutely blistering 162 beat per minute, 1 minute 48 second blues instrumental, and the game was changed right there for blues guitarists everywhere. That track, of course, is Scuttlebutton. Now live, to ease up tension in his left hand, his fretting hand, playing this night after night after night, Stevie would mostly play this riff with slides, somewhat easier. However, I'm going to play it the way he originally played it in the studio with bends, making it just a little bit trickier to get the whole thing up to speed. Regardless, let's check it out. Right then, contender number 5. For contender number 5, we've got a bit of mid-80s hard rock, and one of the biggest rock hits this band ever had in their very long and extremely prolific career. That band is the Scorpions, with the dual guitar attack of Rudolf Schenker and Matthias Jabs. Now, in 1984, there was no more recognizable a guitar riff in hard rock circles than this one. Simple, just 5 easy-to-play power chords, yet its super catchy hook and repetitivity, is that a word? Just wormed itself into the brains of rock fans and non-rock fans all over the world in 1984. This is the Scorpions and Rock You Like a Hurricane at number 5. So then, for contender number 6, we've got some more metal riffage for you, and the heaviest riff on this entire list. Because with the arrival of 1984, we also had the arrival of Metallica's brilliant second album, Ride the Lightning. Now, I could have gone with any number of tracks from this album, as the album is just chock-a-block full of killer metal guitar riffs. However, I decided to go with what I think would be the obvious choice here, and James Hetfield's down-picking masterpiece of a riff, Creeping Death. Let's give it a listen. On to contender number 7. Now remember when I told you that there would be more jangly alt-rock coming up on this list? Well, here we are. This cleverly constructed and very tricky to play riff happens to be one of my personal favorite guitar riffs of all time, not just from 1984. So of course it had to be included here. Now the jangly and ever-changing riff that I speak of is of course the opening refrains to This Charming Man by the great Johnny Marr and the Smiths. Let's check it out. Good then, on to contender number 8. So then, we've covered metal, we've covered hard rock, blues, jangle alt-rock so far in this countdown. Time to shift gears once again with a bit of 1984 prog rock, if we can still call it that at this point. Because by 1984, Canadian band Rush had been mostly veering away from their heavy prog rock origins into shorter, more straightforward musical compositions, while still maintaining a great deal of complexity in their music. Now, personally, I happen to prefer their more adventurous 70s body of work. However, this track from 1984's Grace Under Pressure album to this day remains one of my favorite Rush songs of all time. This is the brilliant opening riff to Red Sector A from 1984's Grace Under Pressure and Rush. Down to riff contender number 9 and another 80s hard rock metal classic. Now, 1984 saw the release of Ronnie James Dio's second album, The Last in Line, and with it, this killer riff from the album's hard-driving opening track, composed and put down by the fantastic Irish guitarist Vivian Campbell, who of course would go on to replace Steve Clark in Def Leppard after his stint with Dio. This riff throws down the metal gauntlet at the very start of this album, telling us Dio certainly means business on what's to come for the rest of the album. This is the opening riff to We Rock from Vivian Campbell and Dio from, you guessed it, 1984. All right then, number 10. Where is Van Halen? Where is Van Halen? Why is there no Van Halen here on this list? 1984, right? They released an album in 1984 called 1984, didn't they? Well, indeed they did, and I was cleverly saving this riff for last. Again, like Metallica's Ride the Lightning, there are any number of fantastic riffs from this album that I could have chosen and that others might have, the likes of Hot for Teacher, Panama, for instance. However, I had to go with my personal favorite and what I think is Eddie's most underrated guitar riff. This is the opening riff to Drop Dead Legs by the late great Eddie Van Halen. All right then, list complete. What did I miss? I'm sure you'll let me know down in the comments. Please do. And speaking of comments, please drop in down below and give a vote for your favorite riff, yeah? See which riff comes out on top in a couple of weeks when we do 1985. Hopefully it won't be another 2 years before we get to that 1985 video to find out. That said, I certainly hope you enjoyed the video. I had great fun making it and learning, and in some cases relearning all of these great guitar riffs from the mid-80s. Don't forget to hit me up with a like and maybe a subscribe if you've yet to do that, as that would be awesome and very kind. Hope you're well out there in your little guitar corner of the world, wherever that may find you, and we will see you next time. Cheers.